Here's a segment from a recent Gun Talk radio episode. You can listen to all the Gun Talk radio podcasts however you tune in, or check out guntalk.com for more. I know. Everybody always says, why do you talk about politics so much? Well, because we have to. Honestly, I would love to just talk about guns and shooting and ammo and cool stuff and going out and hunting and taking the kids out to the range and all the rest of it. But the reality is, if we don't pay attention to politics and what that means, we may not be able to do those other things. There certainly are enough people, enough agencies, enough groups working to take that away from us that we have to pay attention to it. And the fight is constant, and you're not going to win it. It's never going to be over. This is just going to be constant, and this is what we have to do. A gentleman who knows all about that is United States Congressman Steve Scalise. He is the minority whip in the House, Republican. He joins us right now. Congressman, thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Tom, it's always great to be back with you. How you been doing? Hope you had a great Thanksgiving.
I'm good. We had a good Thanksgiving. I hope you did too. Question for you.
Yeah, it was,
well, let me jump right in. You've been a member of Congress for a number of years, and I would, I guess, first say that, at least as far as the House, you had a pretty good election, didn't you?
Well, in the House, we actually flipped at least 12 seats from Democrat to Republican.
Right.
There's still a few more that we're waiting on, but if you look, these were all these Democrats that ran 2 years ago saying that they were going to be pro-gun, pro-Second Amendment. And then they voted with Pelosi on the gun control agenda. And believe me, they brought a few bills that take away our Second Amendment rights over the last 2 years. And those people that voted, by the way, to take away your rights, getting to your point of why people should be involved in politics, they were voted out of office. And it's good that people are watching how people vote, because you can say you're pro-Second Amendment, but then when you vote to take away my gun rights, you're not pro-Second Amendment, and you need to be voted out, and a lot of them got voted out.
You make a good point. It's something I've told people for years and years. I said, look, and you've been in politics. You've been in the Louisiana legislature, the Senate, the House for a long time, and you've worked across the aisle with Democrats. And people say, well, yeah, but so-and-so's a good Democrat. He's a good on guns and all. And I say, look, I understand that. But once you get to the United States Congress, if you're in the House, Pelosi is going to tell you what you're going to do. And if you don't, then you're not going to get the committee assignments. You're not going to get the work. You're not going to get the support. You're basically going to have to do that. So, and I don't know if you would agree, but basically I've been telling people, if you vote for a Democrat in Congress or in the House, you're voting basically for the agenda of Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer. Am I overstating that?
Well, that's exactly what it's become about. And in fact, when you look at a lot of these people that went up, they said they weren't going to be voting with Pelosi down the line. And every one of them voted with Pelosi over 90% of the time. I mean, Tom, when you're voting with Nancy Pelosi 90% of the time, you're not even a liberal, you're a socialist. And people are fed up with that. I mean, Chuck Schumer the other day, we're talking about these Georgia Senate races, and I want to thank you for highlighting to people how important it is. But Chuck Schumer just a week ago said, if we change Georgia, we change America. Look, when liberals from New York talk about changing America, they're not talking about giving you more rights. They're not talking about making it easier for you to not only buy a gun, but to keep the gun that you have in your house. I mean, they're proposing right now a $34 billion tax on guns. That's just on guns. This is the kind of stuff these people are for now. It's crazy.
Yeah, and for people to understand what we're talking about, they're talking about a $200 tax on your each of your semi-automatic firearms, and, believe it or not, a $200 tax on each of the magazines that go into your semi-automatic firearm. They would make them all NFA items, basically the same as a machine gun or a short barrel shotgun or a rifle or a silencer. $200 tax on each one of those. And some of us, Congressman, own not one or two or three, but in the case of magazines, we may own well over 100 of those at $200 a piece. That's outrageous.
Well, right. And this time is part of their agenda to take away gun rights. They've recognized they can't pass, especially with Donald Trump in office. He's been probably the most pro-Second Amendment president we've had in generations. And, if you look at what they're trying to do, they know that right now with the Supreme Court, by the way, they want to pack the Supreme Court if they win Georgia, but they want to be able to change the laws, and they can't. So they're going to say, well, if we just tax you out of being able to buy a gun, for many people, that extra $200 is going to be cost prohibitive. and stop people from buying guns. They're using agencies like the EPA in the past under Biden and Obama. They used the EPA to try to ban lead ammunition. Is why ammo has become so hard to buy. So they go after you in so many different ways. It's why we need to be vigilant on every level of the political spectrum.
Exactly. Congressman, we ask you to hold just a second. I want to take a quick break. Congressman Steve Scalise has been kind enough to give us a little bit of his time today, and I very much appreciate it, Congressman. You are one of the very few people who've actually survived an assassination attempt in June of 2017. And you made the point. Look, you were saved by people who had guns. You were saved by 2 Capitol Hill police officers.
Yeah, Tom, I'm lucky to be alive, but I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for David and Crystal, the Capitol Police officers who were there with handguns that were able to take down this crazy nut that had a rifle trying to kill all of us because we were Republicans. And, when people talk about defunding police, by the way, that gets personal to me as well, because, these crazy people that talk about getting rid of police and, taking away our gun rights, who's going to have the guns to protect us? You want a police to call, some social worker is going to show up with a pat on the back or something. I mean, this lunacy, so what some of these people are talking about, yet they really do believe it. I mean, Biden himself said he wants to ban AR-15s. Would probably try to have Beto O'Rourke as his ATF head. So, I mean, these recounts, by the way, what President Trump's doing to fight to try to make sure that every legal vote's counted, and they're still battling in Pennsylvania. They got a win, kind of goes back and forth. Georgia, they're still fighting. Wisconsin. So you've got the Senate races in Georgia in January, but in the meantime, President Trump's still fighting in the courts to try to resolve all these issues that have been raised about what happened on Election Day in November.
Absolutely. And, and people say, well, why didn't he just concede? We said, well, you don't concede if you haven't lost. And if the battle, and in his mind, and I know in the minds of a lot of people, the battle is still there because we frankly don't trust what happened. And if you go through to the end of it and you go, okay, it was legitimate, it worked, okay, that's one thing. But until we get to that point, and we're not there yet, you got to keep working the fight.
Right, and the race hasn't been certified. The Electoral College members haven't voted yet, and that's what the process is. This idea that it already is over. When you have states like Pennsylvania still having very serious legal questions. One court said that it's illegal what they did in allowing ballots to be accepted after the polls closed, which was their law, by the way. And that's an issue that the Supreme Court's going to be having to take up. There's other issues out there like that, too. And again, you look at Georgia, there's still this race in January, and everybody's got to stay focused on it because on one side, the president's in court fighting there, but on the other side, to let Chuck Schumer take over the United States Senate is at stake. And I don't think it's going to be a split. I think Georgia either goes one way or the other. I don't think there are any undecided voters left in Georgia. It's just whether or not you're going to show up. And if you're a voter in Georgia and you care about your Second Amendment rights, you have to show up or vote early. If you can't show up on Election Day on January 5th, please do everything in your power to go vote early so that your voice is heard and so that you're not going to allow the people like Chuck Schumer. By the way, Michael Bloomberg spent millions of dollars trying to elect more people, and he's going to try to spend more money in Georgia to try to elect these 2 senators to take away our gun rights, to tax the guns that we have today, and also to have a registry of all handguns because they want to ban AR-15s, but they also want to take them away, and if they don't take them away, they want you to register them. I mean, these people will not stop at anything. Mark Kelly got elected in Arizona on an agenda of taking away our gun rights, and he barely won that race.
Let me ask you, because to that very point in the Georgia race, and it's always been frustrating to me that some gun owners don't seem to take it seriously. They go, oh, yeah, well, they're not really going to, or Congress really wouldn't do that. If you would, and you've been up there long enough now, you know the landscape, describe the willingness of the Democrats to push through their agenda if they get the White House, the House, and the Senate, and the speed at which they will try to move. Just kind of paint that landscape for us.
Yeah, Tom, I think people still view Congress the way maybe they view their state legislatures. And both parties have people on both sides that, I'm a Republican, I'm also a conservative. We've got people of different philosophies within the Republican Party. On the Democrat side, I think people are still used to the blue dogs, the conservative Democrats that would go up to Washington and they'd vote to protect your Second Amendment rights. They'd vote to protect life. They were pro-life and pro-gun, and they were fiscally responsible. There are none of those. They're an extinct species. You'll find more spotted owls than you will find blue dogs in Washington because they just don't exist anymore. You're either a liberal or a socialist if you're a Democrat in Congress. And I'm sorry it's like that. I wish it wasn't. But that's just the way it is right now. And frankly, the socialists have been beating the liberals within the Democrat Party. Pelosi caters to the AOC wing of the party much more than she does the liberals. But this idea that there are any pro-gun Democrats left, they're not only not even pro-life on the battle for abortion, they're for allowing a baby to be killed when it's born alive outside the womb and call that abortion. You're not even in the pro-choice debate there. So that's how far left their party has shifted. So taking away your gun rights is just who they are. They believe in it very, very passionately. And we see who these folks are. Don't think that they won't do it if they're given the opportunity and they're given that majority in the Senate.
That was the thing. I was trying to get to people and say, look, you just don't understand. They really do seriously believe in this, and they really do want to do this. And the moment they get the opportunity, they're going to shove it through as fast as they can. And right now, I'm making an assumption now. Let's just work with this assumption. Assuming that Joe Biden ends up in the White House, not a safe assumption right now, but if that happens, the only thing stopping that right now would be the Republicans maintaining control of the Senate. And that really is down to these two runoff races. And even if you're not a Georgia resident where you could vote, even if you're in another state, you can donate money. You can help in some form.
That's right. Both candidates, on our side, you've got Senator Perdue and Senator Loeffler, the two Republicans. They're two very far left Democrats running against both of them, socialists that are running against both of them. And there's a lot of money coming in from outside of Georgia on both sides. Probably a lot more coming in on the Democrat side because they know this is it for them. This is the mother lode. If they get the Senate and the House, they literally can control the legislative branch of Congress. They want to add D.C. and Puerto Rico as states so they can get 4 more United States senators on the Democrat side. They want to pack the Supreme Court because they see what the Supreme Court is doing now. I mean, just look at the last decision made about a week ago, finally allowing religious liberty in California, saying you can't stop people from going to church. You can go to a strip club or a bar in California, but you can't go to church. I'm sorry. That's a violation of our First Amendment rights. And it was a 5-4 decision, Tom. Should have been a 9-0 decision. It was a 5-4 decision with John Roberts, and we've been disappointed by John Roberts for a long time now. John Roberts voted with the liberals to say you should, California, Gavin Newsom can block you from going to church. He can go to a fancy restaurant with his friends, but you can't go to church with your friends and your family, and that's what was at stake. That's how big of a deal this is in these Georgia races.
Exactly. Well, Congressman, thank you so much again. I really appreciate your time. This is a lot of time you're spending with us. And just, let you know that you are always welcome here. We very much appreciate how you fight for us.
Well, look, I know how much is at stake in these elections. Tom, you know what's at stake. And I thank you for letting your audience hear all of these different viewpoints. And I just thank everybody listening for not only caring about the Second Amendment and exercising your Second Amendment rights, but also for voting that way, too, because if you vote for people who are against your Second Amendment rights, they will go away.
There it is. Congressman, we are just out of time. I apologize, but we've got to run to the break here. Congressman Steve Scalise.